nice to do it.
Yeah.
My light side, my dark side.
Good picture, good side.
Well, glad to be back, and here we are. And so, what do you got?
Do you want to give us an update on the capital restoration?
Summarize that 2-hour meeting in about 40 seconds. Well, I think what was important today is we had really all the principals, many of whom, as they said themselves, have been caught up in other things heretofore and not able to give this the real detailed attention that it needs. And, I think we have everybody's attention now, and we'll have a chance over the next couple of weeks to look at and approve the overall design. And then we'll have to get into what I still think are the tough issues that have to be resolved, exactly who's going to have what space and for what purposes. But I think today was a good step forward. We'll have another meeting in 2 weeks, so I think we'll certainly have people's attention directed for it between now and then, so I think we made some good progress.
When the capital renovation planning got underway, there was no second building on radar at that time. And it would seem now that there is a Senate office building looking to come online, that there are potentially major issues with the coordination of space planning in the two facilities. Are you satisfied that there are safeguards in place to assure minimum delays and minimum duplication of efforts in pursuing these two projects?
You mean you're talking about the new legislative building in this one? No, as I brought up in that meeting, that legislative building was really just a concept up until the beginning of the legislative session, even halfway through it. So, we have not really, in my mind, factored in exactly what that building will house and then what the implications are for people who might otherwise need to be here and now could be there. And that's why I think, as I said in the meeting, we need to take a step back and have a look at the overall design of this building and how it's going to best serve the people of Minnesota for the next 100 years. And this new building obviously opens up additional options that need to be considered.
Governor, you seem to think the commission should decide on space, but Senator Bach indicated that that's not the case, that the commission has nothing to do with that the tenants decide.
Oh, we'll have to work out who has what prerogative. We all have essentially some form of a veto. Legislative branch obviously has its prerogatives, and I have mine. And I mean, my goal would be to sit down and work out with the legislative leadership on both sides of the aisle, and the Attorney General and the other principal occupants now. What do we think is best, not for this generation of legislators and executive branch members, but for the next generation, the one after them, and the ones that will follow. And it's hard, I think, for people to step back from their own immediate self-interest and look at that bigger picture. But that's what we're going to be required to do, and I think we'll work that out.
Should the public be prepared for limited access, difficulty getting to the Capitol or around the Capitol or around the lawmakers? What can you say about this disruptive nature of this project as it takes?
It's going to be miserable for you, for me, for everybody who needs to function here. It's going to be like a major highway project. You've got to go through that disruption and dislocation and everything else in order to get to the other side, which is essential for the health and safety of the people who work here, as well as the general public who comes to visit here. So I don't think we have any option. We need to explain to Minnesotans why this is imperative, why it's something we can't postpone any longer, and we'll make the best of the situation. But I think it became clear today with the amount of space that's now aesthetic is going to be turned into a construction zone. It's going to be an enormous shift for all of us until we can get back to where something that makes it worthwhile.
Would it be in the interest of efficiency in coordinating these two projects if the same entity running the Capitol renovation was in charge of the Senate project?
Well, the Department of Administration is in charge of both, and I think they're trying to fold in.
Standpoint, the same design.
I don't know. But, they're set, I think it would be, by law, they'd have to be separate bidding processes, and if that same firm were to apply for both, that's some for a group of experts to consider.
And with regards to the time frame here, I hear correctly that July 22nd is the date for a schematic design?
Yes, whatever that means.
Okay. And so what, tell us a little bit more about how that will move this project forward, what it will do and what it won't do.
Well, I defer to Commissioner Cronk and the people in his department that we're trying to clarify that too. There's a disconnect between the people who have all this expertise in terms of projects like this, in terms of the architecture, in terms of the design, in terms of the electrical and all the detailed work, and those of us, as the representative officer said, are policymakers who are worried about access to the second floor balcony and other things that are very appropriate, but just very different. So we need to merge those together, and that's why I asked the commissioner to tell us clearly before the 22nd, but for that meeting, what does it mean to approve the schematic? What does it mean to approve work plan number 1 and 2/3 of work plan number 2? What decisions are we implicitly making in that process? Which ones remain? I had thought that we needed, by the end of this month, to decide the specific space allocation in order to move ahead on a timely basis. Sounds like now that's not necessary. It's not clear right now when that will be necessary. We do need a deadline, in my view, to come to that resolution, and the sooner we do it, the better. But human nature being what it is, people tend to put off those decisions till they're absolutely necessary.
Governor, update us on your health. You've been kind of down for the count for a little while. Update us on your health.
Oh, well, my physical condition is fine. My physical conditioning needs improvement. And tearing the hip muscle, and I've had an MRI last week, which haven't talked to my physician about the results of that, but it really set back my conditioning because I was getting, even on the trade mission, getting involved in treadmills and getting back into shape, and then that just put a halt for 2 weeks to really moving around much. So as far as I know, my condition is very good. I lost over 15 pounds, so I consider that to be progress. And now I just got to get my conditioning back up to where it needs to be.
Why did you lose weight?
Well, I wanted to, for one. Secondly, I came back from Europe with some kind of bug. It meant I couldn't eat for about 5 days. That facilitated the process. So.
Republican leaders in the House and Senate have delivered a letter to your office today asking for a special session on the warehouse tax. They've asked for it before. They say it was ill-considered without public hearings and it should be repealed. Would you comment, please?
Well, you're right. They brought it up before, and now they're trying to play it out again. It's a grandstanding stunt on their part. They don't have any solution. I mean, if we were to forgo one tax, or you can make a case for another, how much revenue is lost? Where do you make that revenue up? Or what do you cut instead to balance it out? If they want to make a specific proposal about all those things, what the cost would be, how they would pay for that, and then we'd have something, other legislative leaders and myself to look at. But this is just publicity ploy on their part for now. The tax doesn't take effect until April 1st of next year. The legislature comes back the end of February. That's certainly enough time to take action if the budget situation permits in order to address those concerns.
One of the reasons it takes effect in April was so that the Democrats said, so that they know the effects of it as before it goes into effect. They haven't studied it enough.
Well, again, I propose, after I revise my tax proposal, not taxing any of the business-to-business services. So the 3 that were added, the insistence of the legislature in the final week or 10 days of the session were ones that I did not agree to. I agreed with as part of the working out the package, but they each have adverse consequences, and the one that takes effect has already a week ago on the taxing farm equipment repairs, to me, may be the number one priority to get rid of. And I've already said that. That's my number one priority for the session. If we could get rid of all three of them, if we have the revenues able to do that. And remember, again, we're still got to pay off the school districts with the first $850 million of the additional revenues if they're forthcoming. So, they put us into this box. If we had a balanced budget when I walked into office, and if we'd had one facing these two, coming into these next 2 years, with the surpluses generated over the last year and a half with an improving economy, we wouldn't need to raise anybody's taxes for anything. We could have made and still make the investments we wanted in areas like education. So they put us into this hole. The previous administration, the Republicans, put us into this hole, and now they're complaining about how we're getting us out of it. Well, we're getting us out of it. We're putting our accounts back in order. We're going to have a balanced budget. It's going to be an honest budget. No shifts, no gimmicks, no games. We're accounting for everything. Once we get this taken care of, 2 years from now, the economy keeps improving, we'll be in a very sound situation. We will look at a lot of tax reductions or eliminations. But between now and then, we got to run a course where we made the commitments that we made to education, to local government assistance, and other areas that I think people will support job creation. And we're doing it in a balanced way, and they can pick one piece of it and play games with it, but it's not responsible governance.
Just to clarify, have you ruled out a special session now or before?
I don't rule out anything at any time for anything. Don't intend to call one today. Certainly don't intend to call one later this week. Circumstances change, situations change. We had a flood last year in northeastern Minnesota. We had a special session a couple of months later. Nobody expected. So, but at this point, for that reason, absent any comprehensive proposal on their part about what tax they would raise to make up for the difference or what spending they would cut in order to cover the difference, there's nothing serious to even look at.
Just to follow up.
Delivered on this topic from Republican leaders cited outpouring of opposition against the tax. Are you hearing that outpouring? Or are you feeling any pressure?
I hear their outpouring of a clamor for attention. That's about what I've heard about it so far. They brought it up again. They can't even come up with something new. They had brought this up 2 weeks ago. Now they're retreading it today. I got it 2 minutes ago before this meeting. It's not a serious request on their part. It's just hoping to get another day's story out of it.
Just to be clear.
Have you not heard from businesses about this tax?
I've heard Commissioner Franz has been dealing directly. I'd have to defer to him, but he did talk specifically with the Red Wing Shoe Company CEO and explained how the way it's structured, the tax wouldn't affect their purposes for using it for their own storage. If they were to rent out some of the space to someone else, that it would be taxed. But I'm concerned when any business is concerned about a particular tax, and that's why all three of these business-to-business taxes, I think, would have been better off not being part of the final budget package. But there are other things that were accomplished as a result. The local government aids, the elimination of the sales tax paid by local governments, and some other things that were possible within the budget framework the way it was developed. So, it's not a perfect situation, but it's one that we'll deal with. And as I say, if the economy improves, we'll have more options to eliminate all three of those taxes.
Do you have any comments in regard to this in written form on passing your uncle?
Well, he's just a wonderful man. He was the youngest of 5 brothers, and he, I think for that reason, was quiet and yet very determined, very skilled businessman. Constructed the design of and then implemented the Target stores back in the fall of 1962. And I think there were 4 stores. I remember the one over in Dulwood Plaza as one of the first. And back then I was just a very small little operation, and now it's obviously it's the entire company. So he deserves a great deal of credit for his foresight and for his business acumen and the thousands of Target employees and customers and all the charitable organizations around the state who benefit from funds available because of that success are all better off because Doug Dayton was here.
How has Target changed business in the U.S.?
Well, I'm not a leading authority on that subject, but they caught the wave of people who wanted better value, but who didn't want to sacrifice quality. That's really the niche that Target established, perceived as a discount store, but not of a Walmart or a Kmart level of quality. So Target, I mean, it says it well, and people, there's a cachet to working, shopping at Target, the people who are, working people, middle income, upper middle income, upper income, feel comfortable. They want the value, and they also want the reputation that Target's well earned. I had Senator Barbara Boxer haranguing me because her husband in the Senate bought a can opener at Target, and it didn't work. She handed to me like, fix this. Well, with the connections I had at Target at that point, I went to the nearest store and bought another one and gave it to her. But, it had widespread acceptance.
Governor, back to the renovation project here. Explain your reaction when you saw for the first time that the temporary parking plan, and you were a little, you seemed a little upset almost.
Well, taken aback. I mean, it's the reality of it. This is going to be, as I said, a miserable experience for all of us. I'm just, cutting off half of the space of the residents now to do essential repairs because, the roof caved in a year and a half ago, and so I lose 2/3 of the residents, and I have to pay a couple $1,000s to build a new fence for my dogs and a new dog door, and so I can make myself miserable for the next 9 months. I mean, but that's the nature of the project. This project's been delayed, that project was delayed. You can kick the can down the road for a while, but at some point it hits the wall. And we're on borrowed time in this building, not to frighten anybody, but with all the scaffolding and everything else, I mean, that's put out there to protect people, is clear sign that the canary is choking. So we need to be responsible when we are being, and it's being bipartisan, which I really respect and appreciate. If anybody thinks out there in the public we're doing this for our own benefit, really misunderstands the project. We're going to disrupt ourselves for the next 2-3 years willingly for the sake of the people that are really going to follow behind us. But it's got to be done. It'll be done well, and we'll all live through it, and we'll all be here when it comes back together.
What did you think of the parking on the mall?
Well, I don't know the implications for what the alternative is, and the implications for people who, if they couldn't park there, where else could they park, and how would they get to and from work? In terms of the aesthetics, I think it'd be preferable if that area were left green and you had that second deck area out there leading down to the BA building to be available, as people were saying, for organizations, for people to come and express themselves, and then have a clear delineation to the construction area. But I'm not the expert. They know I do want to keep them confined to a manageable amount of space, but projects like this expand to fill the available space. We gave them the whole mall if we gave them the whole mall to the cathedral, I have no doubt they could fill it up with a staging area, but that wouldn't be in our best interest.
Anybody else?
Governor, question on transportation funding. The projections are a multi-billion-dollar shortfall looking out into the future. And so I was kind of wondering if you think that this is an issue that you're going to bring to voters as you run for re-election in 2014, maybe with a plan of your own to try to have a conversation about.
Well, the story yesterday that captured, I thought, the situation very well. I mean, we want a better transportation system, better highway system, safer bridges, and yet, people aren't enthusiastic about paying what that would cost. So we're right at that, the other pieces of it, they said, right at that essential juncture between our needs and as a society and you know, the aversion to having to pay taxes for them. So we're trying to, you know, achieve that balance and see, you know, can we show people in Minnesota, and this is Commissioner Zelli's challenge, you know, what they would get from the kind of major investment necessary to really make a difference in the quality of our projects for the next decade and the decade beyond that. Again, was said, written yesterday, it's a lot easier to get people excited about building something than it is to maintain it or repair it. And that's what we're up against with some of these projects now. So my goal is to, you know, present to the people of the state a vision for what the next 10 to 20 years can hold, options for financing that, and then it's really for the people of Minnesota to decide whether we, all of us together, want a first-rate system, a second-rate system, or a third-rate system.
As part of that conversation, do you think like a mileage type of tax might be something brand new, like a mileage tax, or something that is substantial revenue? Could that be part of it?
I think, you know, everything ought to be considered at this point. I will tend to meet with Commissioner Zelli this week and see what they've looked at so far, but it's got to be leveraged, whatever it is, because the cost of these projects is so enormous, so that we can, as I say, generate enough money to really make a difference. Doing some more street repairs and road repairs is going to be necessary, but it's not going to get what people are going to looking for. They're looking for major improvements. That's what we want to be able to provide.
Thanks, everybody. One more question. Have you given any thought to a bonding bill next year, any sort of dollar amount that you'd like to see?
No. You know, I've thought about the fact that we've got 8 months until the legislature returns, and this is July, and but you know, well, it's just this. We've already got over $1.5 billion of requests from agencies and other groups, or where the process is preliminarily underway with MMB, and the Commissioner of MMB thinks we'll have over $3 billion of requests. And my experience has been at least 3/4 of those are good, valid, needed projects. So whatever we can do, it won't be enough. And we'll have to look and see what, the other thing we need to look at is what the end of this current of the past biennium, you know, financial report looks like, with the November forecast, ultimately the February forecast, you know, gives us in terms of debt capacity. Thank you.
Thank you all.